Okay. So again, wow, we have so many more people who just joined in. So good afternoon to all of you for spending your Friday afternoon with me, right? My name is Gerald, and we are here today for this particular workshop, talking about the RIASEC test. And I'm so excited to be sharing with you about this interesting tool that you can actually get to do it for free using the My Skills Future portal. And I'll share a little bit more about that later on. Okay, so for today's workshop, okay, hang on, someone just raised their hand. Now let me just take a look. Who's that person? So sorry about that. Andrew, you want to, is there something that you want to ask? Or maybe that was like an accidental hand raise that happens. All right. So in the event that you want to say something to me, you can always use the chat function so that I know that you have a question later on. All right. Okay, let me just set the agenda for us today. So this workshop really today, what else you have to do is you have to rename yourself. Please use your full name, the one that you use to register for this workshop, because SkillsFuture will be taking note of the attendance, right? And then of course, there will be no speaking required from all of you during this webinar. I design it that way, so you can keep yourself muted all the way through, right? If you have questions though, you please use the chat function to type them out so that I can try to address them if we have time for FAQ right at the end. And just to take note, slides will not be given. So please take a pen and paper. And what I always advise people to do is you can do a screenshot of the slides if you find that it's useful for you. So you have a record for yourself, all right? And I guarantee you, towards the end of this workshop, there will be some interesting things that you could do for yourself. So you will definitely need to get a pen and paper and do those screenshots that I just said about, okay? So a little bit about introduction about where I'm from. I'm from this career service provider called Avodah. And what we do is we equip and guide people with career education. What we do is we speak to people who are going through career transitions. Maybe you are thinking about changing your work, but you're not so sure. Maybe you're thinking about making a career change into an industry that you're unfamiliar with. Or maybe right now you're already looking for a job and you need some help, right? So that's what we do as a private career service provider. We help people to build their career adaptability so that they can move forward in their career. So this is a bit of our website about where I'm from, right? You can follow us on our Instagram handle at Avodah Solutions, or you can just visit us on our website, www.avodahsolutions.com. So a little bit about myself, right? My name is Gerald. Some of you here know me. I recognize the name. So thank you for faithfully following Avodah's webinars. And for myself, a little bit about me, my background. I spent 11 years in public service, doing career development work, employment services as well. I had a stint in HR, human resources, and I'm a certified career service provider. More importantly, what I really enjoy is speaking to people about their careers, right? I really learned so much from everyone, from many people that I've met through their own career experiences. And one thing I found out from all of them, one common thing that I found out from all of them is that we do not have enough career conversations. We do not talk about our work. We do not talk about how we feel about what we are doing at our workplace enough. We just take it as it's my job, right? And it's what I do. And then we just try to suck up and we try to just do our best. But sometimes inside, it's what's happening inside that we feel, is eating us up. We don't feel comfortable. And then we don't know how to manage this emotion. We don't know how to manage this disconnect. So that's the reason why, it got me really interested to find out how can I help people to develop a career that is meaningful and purposeful. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. And yeah, that's a photo of me without my beard, right? I grew this beard when I was going through the COVID-19, the circuit breaker, and I get so many comments about it. Like people ask me why, and yeah, I ran out of jokes trying to explain myself. So yes, that is a old photo of me. Okay, so let me just run through what we are going to cover today. We'll be talking a little bit about the RIASEC. I want you to understand what this RIASEC word means. It's not even an English word, okay? It's just 6 letters that are put together for a reason, and I'll explain to you why. And I want you to also understand how you can use RIASEC to identify suitable jobs for yourself. And also how do you plan for your career, your next job, and also how do you identify some of the skills gap for yourself, right? I hope that you are excited. We have about we will take about an hour in total for this sharing today. Okay, so here we go. So, this word RIASEC, as I mentioned earlier, it's not an English word. And very often you may hear this word being used by people around you. They may say, oh, there's a RIASEC code. There's a RIASEC test that you can take. There is a Holland code. What does this really mean? And where did it come from, right? So it's important to understand a little bit of history, and that's what I'm going to give you today. This gentleman, this gray old looking photo, this is the photo of Dr. John Holland, right? He in the 1950s, Dr. John Holland, who's a psychologist, he actually developed a classification method to try to organize and classify people and what they do, right? And what he did was he came out with this theory, this research theory about how people can fit with their jobs because of their preferences and what they like to do. And when he had come out with this theory, he called it the RIASEC theory. And some people, we also call it the Holland Code because that's named after his surname, right? John Holland, Holland Code. And that's the reason why we classified it that way. And it's pretty interesting, to know that this classification came from the military. Back in the war, a lot of things actually happened, a lot of good things happened from the army, right? RIASEC is one of them. So Dr. John Holland, he was responsible for conducting interviews of military personnel. So when someone enrolls into the army, right, the army will need to know what is this person good at doing. And this is where John Holland came in and he developed assessment tools to help to profile these soldiers to say, okay, you are good at these things. Therefore, certain kinds of vocation in the army will be good for you. And maybe you are better in other areas. Therefore, you do other areas of work. So this is a way of fitting people to the tasks that would best suit their personality and what they want to do. So the military spearheaded this, they founded this, and right now today, right, this is being used mass market by all of us for the purpose of our own careers, right? Another sidetrack a little bit, another interesting thing that came out from the army is really, for those of us who are working, there's this process as we call the performance appraisal, the yearly performance appraisal where we will get ranked, we'll pay out bonuses based on how well we do in the company. Well, the whole performance management appraisal concept also derived from the army when they're trying to decide who should get promoted. Okay, so a lot of things that we are experiencing today in HR or even in career development is really coming from a very historical place. A lot of it is from the army. Okay, so now you know that RIASEC, founded by Dr. John Holland in 1950s, is a way to classify people. So what is it really used for? All right, I'm using this picture of, y'all will be familiar, this is like a kid's toy, right? Where they kind of fit the triangles into the triangles holes and the circle holes, square into square holes. This toy, is something that I use to kind of explain to people what RIASEC is used for. It's basically a way to try to fit people and the task that they do. Where is a good fit, right? So you wouldn't try to fit a circle into a triangle or a triangle into a square. What you do is you try to look for the right shape and then to fit it in so that there's a good fit. And RIASEC is one of the tools that can help you do precisely that. And the fit that we are talking about, of course, we're not toys, but the fit that we're talking about is really based on our interests and our preferences. Preferences mean what we prefer, okay? So RIASEC, really, when we look at it ourselves, we need to think about what we are good at doing, what we would like to do, and then we look at the task at hand, the kind of jobs, the kind of roles, the kind of activities that are there, and whether it's a good fit for us. Okay. So these are John Holland's words. A bit more technical explanation. People and work environments can be categorized and then matched to each other, right? So he believes his theory, his work actually looks at people, that's one side, and then work environments on the other side. They can be categorized and then they are used to match each other. So his work, his theory wants to categorize people according to what type of work they are most interested in, and then also classify the jobs, the occupations under the same kind of categories so that you can find alignment. So this is where, if you understand your RIASEC code well enough, and you're able to understand and identify what's the RIASEC code of a job, you can potentially decide for yourself whether this is a good fit or not. Okay, and John Holland also says that we tend to act on our dominant interests and seek occupations in which our interests can be expressed. Simply put, it means that we prefer to do things that we like to do. I think that is the simplest way of putting it across. And RIASEC is definitely one of the assessment tools to help you to do that. So let me just jump straight into the RIASEC code, right? Remember I told you it's RIASEC. And what does that mean? Well, it means 6 different words actually. R stands for realistic. I stands for investigative. A, artistic. S, social. E, enterprising. And C, conventional. So these are what we call 6 dimensions or 6 types, if you will, that form up this RIASEC code. And you realize that it's a very interesting hexagon shape. Okay, I'll go into that a little bit later. But let me just explain to you, for each of the dimensions, what do they really mean? And you can see in the each of the boxes, right, there are actually some shapes, some icons that are there to help you to understand. So for realistic, for example, you see a machine, a hand, right? Realistic refers to people, who prefer building things, doing things hands-on, right? They are more action-oriented and they're also very task-focused. So that is the explanation for R, realistic. The next one, I, you see a magnifying glass. So what does that really mean? Well, people who are investigative really just refers to, research-related tasks, facts, problem solving, and reading. All these are like the process of finding out, being very curious. That is what investigative dimension refers to. Next one, the artistic, right? Artistic, many people think about it as music, art, dance, acting, singing, but it's actually more than that. It's actually more than that. It's actually creating. People who are, the artistic dimension really refers to the act of creation, act of making something new, right? It's having the autonomy, the flexibility to freely express, and also having the space to innovate, right? That's artistic. Next one, social. Social is quite straightforward. It's about helping people, right? That's why you see 2% there and having the speech bubble. It's really about helping people. It's about counseling people, listening to people, talking to people, guiding people, educating people. So it's very people focused, okay? And then the next one is enterprising. For enterprising, it's really about, the dimension is really about leading people. That's why you see a bullseye. You are giving people a target, a direction to move towards. So you're actually persuading them, you're influencing them, and you are very goal-oriented. So that's what enterprising means. And the last but not least, we have conventional. You see, conventional, you can see like this hierarchy process thing, right? So you could have guessed it. It's really about being organized, structured, and process-oriented. So, these are the 6 RIASEC codes or the 6 RIASEC dimensions. And the good news for all of us is that we all of us have all 6. Okay, we have all 6. The only thing is, for us, some about 2 or 3 of these dimensions in our lives tend to be more dominant. Okay, so we have all 6, but at any one point of time, only 2 or 3 of them tend to be more obvious. Dominant means obvious, or more regularly used. Okay, and here's what I mean. Let me just move back to this slide first. What I mean by that is, at any one point of time, you may be 2 or 3. Let's say you are realistic and investigative, and also artistic. So these 3 forms your dominant code. Okay, I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a while. But let me just explain to you again the dimensions. Some of you will be wondering why the hexagon shape, and there's a reason for this. So the hexagon shape, when we map it out, RIASEC, right? They actually also mean different things. Firstly, when you split the hexagon right down the middle, right? The left side and the right side, then there's a top and a bottom as well. Okay. So for if today you are more R or more I or more C, this part, the C, the R, and the I, you tend to be more focused on things, on work, right? Whereas the people who are more on the S, the A, and the E, they are likely to be more people-oriented. That means very relational. Then the other dimension to look at is ideas and structure, data, right? If today you are more on the I and the A side, you tend to be more on ideas. You tend to think a lot. You tend to try to express, dream of different ways of doing things. Whereas if you are a C and an E on this side of the coin, you are more logical. you operate more on data, you operate more on facts rather than abstract ideas. Okay, so knowing this also allows you to kind of understand if today you know which are your codes, you know what are the dimensions you tend to gravitate towards. Besides knowing R is realistic, I is investigative, and what they mean, also knowing this is important, right? Another two ways to look at this is the people that are more on the upper quadrant here, the R and the C, and the people who are at the bottom quadrant, A and the S, there's a difference also. R and C people, because they're more hands-on, they're more process structured, process oriented, they tend to be more conforming. They tend to follow processes and rules quite well. For A and S, social and artistic people, you tend to be a bit less conforming because you want to explore ideas, you want freedom of expression, right? The other two dimensions also mean something. For R and I, remember, you're more focused on things, and that's the reason why you tend to be the people with R and I tend to be a bit less social. They prefer to be working on items, on machines rather than with people. Whereas E and S, they are tend to be more people oriented. E specifically, you are actually enterprising, leading people towards goals and direction. Definitely, you have to be more social. So knowing these dimensions also adds another flavor to understanding your RIASEC code. It's not just about the codes that you have, but also understanding how the codes actually map back to the hexagon shape and what it means. So as I mentioned earlier just now about the dominant part, right? We all have six dominant, we all have 6 dimensions, but at any one point of time, we have 2 to 3 dominant preferences. So take note, these dominant preferences may change as we grow, right? Because one of the most common questions I get from people when using RIASEC test is there a good profile? Is there a good set of codes to have? The answer is no, because we have all 6. There's no good or bad code. The other thing is, people always ask is, will this code of mine change over time? The answer is yes, it may. And the reason is because as you grow older, as you accumulate more work and non-work experiences, you start to learn things about yourself. You start to understand what you like and what you don't like. Your preferences will change. Therefore, your RIASEC code, there is a chance that it will change as well, right? So it's not like a crystal ball. RIASEC is not like a crystal ball for you to just look at it one time and say, okay, this is the photo that I've taken of my code. My code is like this and it will be like this for the rest of my life. It's not, my friends. It's like, imagine you take a photo of yourself now and you take a photo of yourself 10 years later. It's going to look different. The same thing for a RIASEC code. So it's always good to redo and reevaluate what your preferences are, because we know that your preferences will change. All right. So knowing that you have got 6 dimensions, but at any one point in time, 2 or 3 of them will be dominant, right? How should you read this? Let me give you an example. Imagine that your RIASEC code, you're higher on investigative, conventional, and enterprising. This is what it means. Your code would be E, C, and I, which is enterprising, conventional, investigative, or it can be C, E, and I, the reverse way, or a third reverse way, I, C, and E. So any combination of these 3 would actually be your RIASEC code. But at the same time, you have to take note. For some people, your RIASEC code, the left one is always the most dominant, the highest, okay? And then the second highest will be the middle, and the third highest will be the one on the right. So for some of us, maybe our dominant, that means the first highest, is very, very high, right? Then that has to always be the first. But for some of us, when we look at our scores, they are like pretty even. The top 3 are quite even, quite on par with each other. Then that's where you can actually use, a combination to actually describe your preferences, okay? So don't look at yourself as just, oh, I am just E, C, and I, or C, E, and I, doesn't matter. Actually, you do have the other 3 as well. It's just that it's lower, all right? So this is a little bit of explanation on the RIASEC dimensions for you. So I want to touch a little bit about where you can take this RIASEC test. Now you have heard me talk about the history. You have heard me talk about how it's what each dimension actually means. You must be wondering, like, okay, how do I know my RIASEC code? Well, there is a free resource for all locals, and you can get it from My SkillsFuture portal, right? This www.myskillsfuture.sg. And under this portal, you will see resources on top, right? And when you click on that, you will find out more. you'll be asked to log in with your SingPass, right? And once you log in, you'll be able to take three different tests, and these three tests actually measure three different things, but all based on the RIASEC. The first one is your interest, what you like to do. The second is your confidence, what can you do? And the third, your values, what is important to you. Knowing these three things gives you a better understanding of yourself as to what will be possible roles and jobs that would fit you. Some of my clients, they will ask me, Gerald, how do I know whether this job is good for me or not? Wow, that's a big question to ask because, honestly, nobody would know for sure whether a job is suitable for you, all right? The most important thing is you need to have the self-awareness to compare and to know whether a job is a good fit for you. And we're not talking just about, the salary and the position you're taking. I'm talking about the type of things that you would do at work, right? There's no point in taking a job with a high salary when you are not happy doing the type of things that you are doing, because you wouldn't last long there. So it's, when you're looking for a job or you're thinking about a future role for yourself, using this RIASEC test, to understand your interests, your confidence, and your values, it would be a good starting point for you to be objective about your own assessment of whether certain opportunities are good for you or not. Okay, so interest, confidence, and values. Let me show you an example of my own assessment results. Okay, so this is my career interest. These are my results, really plucked out from the website. All right. So for me, so this is what you see as well if you do the same RIASEC test on the My Skills Future portal. So for me, as you can see, my top three is S, E, and C: social, enterprising, and conventional. And then the other three, as I mentioned before, we have it as well. It's just that it's lower. I have realistic, artistic, and investigative as the next bottom three. So when we look at this, it means that SEC will be my code. Or because, you look at the difference between social and enterprising is 75 versus 62. It's quite a significant difference. Therefore, what it tells me is that the purpose of helping people, whatever I do, if I can see meaning in helping people, then I'll be very connected with the role itself, right? Because my social, I have a very high need for social related activities. If today some of you do the test and you find that your scores for your top three are pretty similar, like maybe 60 plus or 50 plus, and they're all about the same, that's where you have to view your code as a combination of S, E, and C. You have to view it as a combination rather than a single factor. So for me, because 75 social is quite high, I view it as a single factor. That is often like a veto when I'm making career decisions. So if today I'm able to choose a job and I see that this job, I don't get to interact with people, I don't get to talk to people, I wouldn't want to do that job, because I have a very high need for social. Okay, so this RIASEC test allows you to break down the 6 dimensions by a number and then also pick your top 3. And they also have very helpful descriptors at the side. Okay, so this is the career interest. Remember there are 3 tests. Let's look at the other 2 that I took as well. The second one is about my confidence, right? The first one is what I'm interested to do. So I'm SEC for that. The second one is what I'm confident to do. I'm SER. The C has disappeared and it's been replaced by the R. And the reason why this test actually does that is because what you like to do, which is your interest, and what you're good at doing or confident in doing are actually 2 different things. I'm sure some of you can relate to that. You may be doing a job, you may be doing a role that you are good at doing, but you actually don't like what you do, right? Your boss and your colleagues can tell you, hey, you're so good in doing this particular work. Can you do more of it? And in your heart, you are like, no, I don't really like to do this. I feel like it takes out so much of me just to do this work, but okay, maybe I'll just do it for the team's sake or because my boss asked me, therefore I will do it. So that's the difference between what you're interested in and what you're good at doing. So for me, I feel that I'm good at building things. I feel I'm good at making things. Then that's why my realistic is higher than my conventional, right? I don't feel that I am that good with following processes and setting up structures, guidelines, for my work. So that's the reason why the C has been replaced with the R. So when you do your skills confidence survey, and when you read your RIASEC codes, read it from the perspective that these are the activities that you're confident to do. That means the top three, again, the social, for me, is social, enterprising, and realistic. That's what I'm confident to do. Okay. The other three, not that I cannot do, but I'm less confident in doing them. Okay. And the last one is really very small because it's a very long list, so I must apologize for that. The last one is really about values. Okay. So over here, you don't see the RIASEC anymore. You don't see that anymore. What you see is a longer list of values like co-workers, creativity, independence, prestige, variety, and so on, so forth. Right? This is not related to RIASEC, but in the system, they will have matched it to the RIASEC. So like, if today you are more of a social person, and then after that, enterprising as well. So some of the questions that I may answer along that track leads to this kind of values. Okay, values just mean that, it's what's important to us. So as you can see from my results, right, income is not a big problem for me because right at the bottom. But co-workers is very important. Relationships is very important. And you can see how that ties in with my social, which is I want to help people. Relationships and my workplace is important to me, right? Being able to have creativity and be independent, that is related to my enterprising as well. Because I like to lead, I like to do things and drive new projects. I like to explore new things. So that's the reason why the creativity and independence is there. Okay, so this is how you should read it. Values is important because when you are contemplating or you're considering job offers, knowing your values will allow you to also make a better career decision. For example, if let's say like me, your highest value is co-workers and creativity, and your next job that you're applying for, you ask someone about it and you realize that that job requires you to not talk to people at all, right? And you are supposed to be working independently on your own. And your boss has already set up all the processes for you. You just need to follow, right? That kind of role would not be suitable for a person with my profile because I need to speak to people. I need to build relationships. I need to be creative to change some of the things around, right? So knowing that allows me to see, hey, although it's the same job that I may be applying for or a role that I secured for myself, but it may not be a good fit based on my values. Okay, so remember there are three things: interest, what you like to do; skills, what you're confident in doing; and values, what is important to you. Right, and all these three you can be done from the My Skills Future portal. Okay, so going back to this whole thing about RIASEC, so how do you actually, today I want to give you three tips, right, in how you can be using RIASEC for your career. So all of you going to the portal earlier I mentioned, you can actually get your free RIASEC code. And your free RIASEC code will be your 3-digit kind of a rating where three alphabet rating of your interests, your skills. And how you can use this, number one, you can use this to compare with your current job. You can use it to compare with your current job, and I'll teach you how to identify what is the RIASEC from your job. Because knowing your RIASEC code is not difficult. All you need to do is just to log in by your SingPass to My Skills Future and you can get your own personal RIASEC code. But how do you derive a RIASEC for your job? And everybody's job is different. So how do you compare that? I'll teach you how to do that very easily. The second thing that you can do, you can also use your RIASEC code to compare against interesting jobs. Same thing, looking at what's interesting, deriving the RIASEC from that and comparing it to find the fit with yourself. I don't really like to use the word future job because I think many of us, we may find that, that's too far. Future is too far away already. But what I find particularly helpful with my clients is to explore interesting jobs. Interesting just means jobs with a possibility. If given a chance, you might be curious and be interested to find out more, right? Those are the jobs that you want to kind of look at. So interesting job, the RIASEC codes from there and comparing with yours as well. And of course, last but not least, looking at the skills part. How can you identify skills to learn when you are trying to match, interesting jobs with your RIASEC code? Okay, so here, from this point on, it'll be a little bit more technical. So just bear with me, and you might want to take screenshots of some of the templates that I'm showing you on the screen so that you can do it on your own later. Okay. So the first one, comparing your RIASEC with your current job RIASEC. So as you know that there's no formal test to identify your current job RIASEC. So how do you do it? Very simple. all you need to do is to have a template like what I'm just showing you on screen now, right? So just taking a table using Excel sheet or whatever, a piece of paper is also fine. Just draw these columns. 1, your current job. 2, what is the title of your current job? I'm just listed as teacher as an example. 3, write down the description of what you do. So as a teacher develops lesson plans. Teacher delivers classroom lessons, plans ECAs, engage parents, prepare for examination, and do marking. All right, this is a very simplistic view of teachers. So, if any of you are teachers, I'm so sorry if I totally messed up your job description. This is just based on the top of my mind of what teachers do. All right. So the important thing about doing this is you have to think back about your job and be very objective about what you are doing. Some of us, when we are doing our role, we say, oh, we just do sales law. For example, we just do sales. So what does doing sales really mean? Can we break it down further? Doing sales means that you are talking to customers. That's one description. It means that you need to memorize your product knowledge, right? You need to memorize your product details. That's a second description. You need to calculate your margins. You need to calculate a price point. That's 3. You need to do follow-up with the people that you have contacted for sales. That's 4. So just doing sales itself, right? When you break it down further, there are actually very specific, detailed tasks that you need to put into the description. Okay, so the more granular, the more fine you can identify these tasks and these details, right? The better it is, the more accurate your job code, your job RIASEC will be. Okay, so for this teacher, for a teacher role, I just listed out 6 as a simple example of what they usually do. And what we plan to do next is to look at the next 6 columns, RIASEC. So now you are the person to decide this description, which RIASEC codes, what are the top 3 RIASEC codes for this particular task. Someone doing development of lesson plans, what would be the RIASEC codes that would be applicable for this, right? So you need to pick the top 3 dimensions, meaning the RIASEC, pick 3 of them that fit each description, right? And then when you have selected that, the next step for you to do is to award 3 points for the highest, 2 points for the second highest, and 1 point for the third highest. Okay, so let me just show you what this means. For example, you have the teacher developing lesson plans. Because lesson plans development, my assessment is that, okay, it's conventional because you have to be structured. You have to put the lesson plans into a certain format, right? So I give 3 to be the highest. 2 is investigative because you need to think about your students and what your students need to learn. So I give it a 2. And 1 R, realistic, right? It requires you to be, do some research on your own. It requires you to hammer out, just type out and create, just focus and just create the lesson plans, the documents, the learning artifacts that you need for the lesson. And then this is how you actually map out 3, 2, and 1. That's what it means, okay? And another example, like planning ECAs, right? Planning extracurricular activities. This time, I think it's a 3 for I, investigative, because you need to know what are some of the activities that will be useful for your students. And then after that, you have a social element inside as the second highest because you're talking to the students a lot about their extracurricular activities. You're helping them to improve, be it in whatever sports or enrichment kind of extracurricular activities. And lastly, A, because perhaps you need certain creativity, you need certain autonomy and flexibility to execute some of these activities that you want to do. So looking at, now you can kind of understand, if you have a current job, if you're able to break down the job into very specific work role tasks, and cannot be general, must be as specific as possible, and then so your list will go quite long, then you map out each role, you map out the top 3 and award 3, 2, 1 for each of them. And then after that, you can actually total them up. And when you total them up and you're looking at the total scores, you'll be able to find the 3 highest. So in this particular case, the 3 highest will be I, C, and S. So 10, 9, and 8. And therefore, the RIASEC code of your job is I, C, and S. Okay, so this is how you identify your current job RIASEC. Now, remember your own personal RIASEC. How do you compare with that? So then you have to match. All right. So taking myself as an example, my RIASEC code is S, E, and C. Social, enterprising, conventional. Assuming I'm doing a teacher role that I just described, the role is I, C, R, or S, all right? Because S is like quite close over there. You can see that there are actually a little bit of difference. Social is very important to me, but it's ranked lower. It's not so important on the teacher role, the role I'm currently doing. Enterprising is also quite important to me, but I don't see it over here. Wow. So when we look at these differences, right, we need to ask ourselves two questions. The first question we need to ask ourselves is, what are some of the possible pain points we feel at work? When we are working, knowing our RIASEC code and knowing, the job itself, what it requires of us, what are some of the pain points that we face? Remember the image that I gave you about the toy, where you're fitting in the triangles into triangles, the circles into circles? If there's a good fit, right, the pain point will be very little. If today you're trying to fit in a triangle into a circle, that's where you may find some pain points. As you think back, to understand what are some of the pain points you feel in your work, you may realize that, okay, perhaps these are areas of misfit. The areas between yourself and what you do, there are areas of misalignment and misfit, all right? And it's nobody's fault. It's just that your preferences and what you're asked to do may not be fully aligned, all right? At this point, many of my clients will ask me, Gerald, should I change my job? Should I change my job, right? My answer to you is no. You shouldn't just quit your job just because your RIASEC code is different. Please don't do that, all right? Please go through deeper thinking first, okay? There are a few things that you can do. Number one is you can explore possible work scope changes. So knowing that you have certain preferences and your job requires you to do differently, have the talk with your supervisor. At the end of every year or in the middle of the year, often your supervisor may ask you for a conversation about how you want to develop yourself, what you want to learn. They have career development plans or talent management plans for you. Using this will be a good way for you to match and identify what are the pain points, and you can explain to your manager, your supervisor, why you feel certain things may not be, if you keep doing them, it may not be playing up to your strengths. It may not be playing up to what you're interested in. And doing this for long term, it may make you feel like perhaps jaded or burnt out, right? Because if you keep doing something that you're good at doing, but you are not, you're not interested in, there's usually a disconnect after some time. Okay, so talk to your managers, talk to your supervisors about possible work scope changes. Don't force it upon them though, right? Just ask them what are the possibilities of like perhaps shifting your work a little bit around, so that you are like, that square peg, you're trying to look for the square hole rather than being asked to fit into a circle. Of course, I know this is the ideal situation. I know that many workplaces, many supervisors, they may not have the ability to do that for you, right? Some may have, but I know that a lot may not have that. So, then your career being your own, your job being your own, you have to think about the practical side of things, right? The finances, right? If today you were to change your role, what will you change to? What could you potentially do? So don't quit your job on the whim. Don't just quit your job just because your codes are different, all right? Learn to understand there are reasons for the differences. Learn to understand what these differences are. Is it even a big deal to have this big difference, or the pain point is actually bearable? For some of us, we may find that, okay, the pain point is bearable, I'll just continue with it, right? But for some of us, we may say that the pain point has been there, it's getting worse, it's been 10 years, right? Maybe I should do something about it. Then that's where, you need to think through your career. You need to think through what else you need to do for the next step, right? And that brings us to our next point about interesting jobs. So doing for interesting jobs, which is not a current role, you do the same thing also, all right? The same matching. So I'm not going to repeat myself here, but this time around, what you do is you pick out 3 to 5 interesting job roles for you. So in this example, I'm picking out 2, community manager and a researcher. And I listed down some of the things that they do. And of course, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to map out their RIASEC, right? So looking at awarding the 3-2-1 as usual, and I find that, okay, the totals, the RIASEC scores have come out, the top 3 as such, right? For community manager, which is a role that I'm interested in, is high on the E, S, and I. For researcher, is high on the I, C, and E. So knowing this, let's put everything side by side together again. There you have it. My RIASEC code is S, E, and C. The 2 other roles that I'm interested in, they have ECS and ICE. So when you look at this and you're wondering, okay, which one would be a better fit for me? Well, you just look at the letters, which ones actually have more of the overlap with your code. So in this particular case, the community manager, right? Because it has the same three letters, E, C, S, S, E, C. It's just in a different combination. All right. So between these two roles, if today I have just these two roles to consider, right? Then from a very simplistic view, a community manager would be the one that I want to go with. Okay, just because it fits in with what my preferences are at this point in my life. So knowing this, we can actually use the RIASEC to shortlist and prioritize possible job changes. So if today I'm doing a job search, right? Which one will I focus more on? I'll be focusing more on the community manager. I'll be using my LinkedIn, I'll be using my network to try to talk to people who are doing community manager roles. I will find out from them, is it really that they get to do things that are E, C, and S, enterprising, conventional, social? Because remember that the exercise that we did earlier, right, is something that you self-evaluate based on what you know, assuming that what you know is complete. So I always say, talk to people first before you actually do a job change. Find out from people who are doing the kinds of role that you are interested in. Find out from them what do they do, and then validate back again with what you know. Is it really fitting your RIASEC code? Okay, but knowing, because we all have so many options, right? Using this method allows you to prioritize, shortlist, and rank which one should you put more focus on, and which one should you just like possibly totally eliminate, right? You all realize that the I part for me is low, so in this case, the researcher role maybe is something that I should not consider at all, right? So this is one way that you can use to actually match your RIASEC with your next job, interesting jobs, all right? And last but not least, we're talking about skills. So how do you, now that let's say as a teacher, now I'm doing a teacher role, as you can see below, there's a table below the teacher role, and I have chosen, I want to be a community manager. I want to work towards being a community manager. How do I identify the transferable skills I have and the skills gap also? Well, using the same table below for the teacher, and then your chosen job and the description that you came up with, right? What you need to do is you need to map again. So you have two columns, skills I have and skills I lack. So what you do is, for example, community manager, number one, engage and educate public, right? And I look back at my teacher role and I find that actually I do that in deliver classroom training and engaging with parents. So I write number 2 and number 4. And I highlight out the skills that I actually use. I use communication, I educate, I do content development, I resolve conflict, especially among parents, right? So these are skills that are very transferable towards this particular job task required of a community manager. At the same time, I realized, I do lack certain things, because maybe after talking to someone who's doing community manager role, they tell me, Gerald, you need to speak to different people of different races and of different ages. So the multi-language component skill set becomes really, really important and critical. And I don't have that because I only speak in English in school. So that becomes a skills gap area, multi-language. So now I know if I want to do this role, what are some of the skills that I need to pick up and what are the skills that I have. And as you go down the line, looking at number 2, organizing events and activities, similarly, number 1 and number 3 will be transferables, specifically in budget management, event planning, managing volunteers, being number 4, engaging parents in the parent-teacher committee planning, right? The skills I lack, people management perhaps. So doing this allows you to, number 1, focus on the things that you lack, and then you can possibly go and do some learning, some training, look for some courses relating to this area so that you can be brought closer to this job role. Some of you may ask, Gerald, really, if I do this, I can get a job, right? My answer to you is, the truth is, if you don't do this, you confirm cannot get a job, right? But if you do this and you make effort, it shows that you have self-awareness. It shows that you are keen to learn, you're keen to take on some online learning or some short courses to help you to pick up some of these things, so that when you go to interview table for the community manager and the employer asks you, you are a teacher, why do you want to become a community manager? Do you even know what it takes? And your answer is yes. And you are able to use this as your research background to actually share with them what you know of the role. You can share with them that you realize that this is a role that requires multiple language, and you have taken some steps to go and learn a dialect, learn another mother tongue, Malay, Tamil, or whatever, Chinese, to kind of make yourself fit the role better. At the same time, knowing the skills that you have, people may ask you, what are some transferable things that you can bring over from your job role? You have a story to tell. You're able to communicate out, based on your experiences. So like managing volunteers, you can say that you can relate a story, that you were in a parent-teacher committee planning, and that requires you to work with parents because they are also volunteers, and that they are not easy people to work with because so many of them. And this really allowed you to build up that skill of volunteer management. So you have stories to tell. Doing this allows you to perform well at the interview also. And of course, I need not say again, your resume. Your resume, you have this skills section, right? Doing this allows you to identify the skills that you have, so you can put into your resume, right? So right now, as a teacher, it's not just about teaching classes. You don't just talk about development of classroom lessons or marking. I put in communication as my skill. I put in educating as my skill. I put in conflict resolution as my skill. I put in budget management as my skill. I put event planning as my skill, right? These are skills that you may not think the teachers actually have, but this is what they do. And when you distill down to this granular level, right, you are able to put all these things and put all these things to your resume and prepare for your job search more effectively. Okay, so with that, I've covered the RIASEC, what the history is about. I've covered how to read the codes. I told you where you can get your own RIASEC, and I shared with you 3 ways, to use your RIASEC code to further your own career and your skills development by mapping your current job RIASEC with your code and comparing, is this a good fit for you where you are right now? Exploring 3 to 5 interesting job roles for you. Are they really good for you? Could they be suitable for you? And lastly, identifying skills gap. When you want to move into new roles, what are some of the skills? How do you identify the skills that you need? And then where can you go and find them, right? My Skills Future portal, besides being the place for RIASEC, right, to take the free code that I just mentioned to you about, it's also a very good place for you to do your course search, right? There is a directory of, I think, more than, 20,000 courses about thereabouts, right? They can use your Skills Future credit on. And this is where you can use your credits to go and find multi-language courses, people management courses, social media management courses, because these are things that are useful for you in planning your career. So it's a kind of one-stop, if you have this, if you follow this process that I just shared with you, all right? Okay, so I think I've come to the end. Yes, I've come to the end of my sharing. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying tuned, and I hope this has been useful for you. If any of you have questions, we still got about 5 minutes left. If any of you have questions, do feel free to type it into the chat so that I can just address it for everyone's sake, right? So that we can all learn together. Okay. Esther, you raised your hand. Do you want to ask a question? You can unmute yourself and ask, or you can type it in the chat.
Oh, okay. Because it's quite a long thing, so I prefer to talk. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Esther.
Okay, good. First of all, just now you mentioned, like, for example, social is a helper, conventional is an organizer, and so on. What about realistic and artistic? How would you describe such a person?
Wonderful. Let me backtrack a little bit to that slide so that we all can see. It's a good question, Esther. Let me just pull out that image for us so that we know. And here we go. So Esther's question for us was, about realistic and artistic. What are some of the descriptors used by them, right? So you can see from here, for realistic, it's really about people who are very hands-on, right? And artistic is someone who is more interested in creating new things, having flexibility to do things. Okay, so very often, if today your RIASEC code happens to have artistic and realistic as your top 2 or even your top 3, it would mean that you would prefer working on things by yourself. You prefer to be given space, no micromanagers, you don't like that. You prefer to be doing things one-off. That means you do already, and then after that you create already, right? And you submit, and then that's it. You don't have to look at it and redo it over and over again. And you prefer to be, when you're doing things, you're very focused. You're very focused on the task and you try to do it as good as possible. This is what it means, because when you merge both the artistic and the realistic segments, this is what it will look like. All right. So that's the reason why when you look at your dimensions, you cannot look at it as each single letter. You have to combine them together and see how it fits in with your life and your experiences. Don't take the words over here as the absolute, application for each of you. You have to look at these words to give you a sense of what it means, and then you need to ask yourself, how does this code actually relate back to your life, right? If today you have an R and an A in your RIASEC code, what are the experiences you have had in your career, whether it's a paid job or unpaid job, that actually you are displaying these kind of attributes, right? Where you are very hands-on, you prefer to, okay, let's just get down to doing things. And then after that, you want to always try to change the way you do things. Try to be outspoken and share with people how you feel and how should the service or the product that you're trying to do change. All right. Yeah, answer your question, Esther.
Actually, Mr. Gerald, I'm thinking of asking you for my result is actually SIC, but I realize under realistic, I'm a very task-focused, action-oriented person. So it's like hands-on and half of this, but not in my result because I'm high on S and C. So how to interpret such a result? You know what I mean? It's like a bit here, a bit there.
Actually, you're right to say it's a bit here, a bit there, because as I mentioned earlier, all of us have all six. Every one of us have all six. It's just that at any one point of time, how we answer the survey itself may influence the outcome. That's why, that's why for you, Esther, right? Really for all of us as well. When we look at the RIASEC code, please don't let the RIASEC code define who we are. It should be the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Gerald. That means to say, even though my R, the realistic, is the lowest score, and I'm high on S and C, that means to say I should go for a job that is more conventional, more social kind.
So what I would say for you, Esther, and for those of you who have similar encounter with Esther, do take your RIASEC code, right? And then after that, try to think back about your own career. Do you agree with the code that's given to you? If you find that you disagree, right, there's a chance that the question, the way you answered the survey may have given you a wrong RIASEC code. It's very possible. Maybe when you were doing this RIASEC code, you were on the move, maybe you misinterpreted the question, it's possible that may have happened, right? So it's more important to look at the RIASEC code as a way to understand yourself. Is this who you really are? If you feel that the RIASEC code don't paint the correct picture of you, perhaps I would suggest a few things. Number one, retake the test again. This time, make sure that you focus on the questions, do it seriously, do it honestly, do it objectively, okay? Number two, if you really still struggle with understanding that, approach a career center. There are career coaches in E2I and WSG who will be able to offer you free advice about your RIASEC code, right? You can tell them that this is my RIASEC code and then I don't kind of understand it. They will be able to kind of talk you through and explain to you this, right? So that can be a way for you to get some help to make sense of this RIASEC code. I have had experiences in the past before where clients did this RIASEC code test, right? And they tell me that, Gerald, I don't think it fits, I don't think it fits me. And that's perfectly fine. It just means that it's like, when you take a photo of yourself, sometimes you take a photo of yourself and you look at the photo and say, hey, this one don't look like me. It looks like somebody else. But that's actually you. It's just taken from a different angle, right? So if you don't like it, you just need to reevaluate, rethink, and then after that, get some help. Talk to somebody about it. Perhaps maybe when you talk to others about it, who are objective, they may be able to help you to understand, why this thing, why you're more of a S and I rather than a realistic kind of a situation. All right.
All right, that is very helpful. And one last question: do you charge for your service? Under your website, right?
Yes.
Are we able to connect with you? I think somebody asked in the chat group, how do you have an email?
Yes. I think you can follow us Avodah's website. There's actually a social media. Actually, right at the bottom here, you can see avodahtsolutions.com. Yes, I think you can get in touch with us. What we don't do is we don't do what we have a process to kind of understand your situation first. We won't sell anything, but we will try to understand your situation and then see how we can help you. Ours, just to qualify, right, we actually a private career service provider, so therefore there are actually payments required. So that's a little bit different from what I suggested earlier, which is Workforce Singapore and E2I, because their service is complementary. So I thought I needed to kind of make that clear for all of you here. If you have not been to a career center, I highly encourage you to approach a career center first to find out what they can do for your question. And if you feel that that's not enough, you need a little bit more, then that's where you turn to the private side, right, to see what else the private sector can actually help you with. All right.
Right.
So
can we get your slides, PowerPoint slide, to our email, sent to our email for today's talk?
Okay, let me check with SkillsFuture how we can do this.
Right.
Because I told some of you that earlier, I think before we start the session, that the slides will not be shared actually. So that's why for all of you, it would have been good for you to kind of take notes on your own, take screenshots on your own. I know some of you, Nicholas, is asking about this as well. So yeah, let me talk to SkillsFuture and see how we can get the slides over to you guys. All right.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Christine is asking about NLP and RIASEC. Christine, I wouldn't be sure about NLP because I'm not certified nor trained in NLP. So I can't comment on that, unfortunately. Yeah. So and Andrew Tay is asking about, is there a way to obtain the mapping of RIASEC codes to SkillsFuture framework career map? So the SkillsFuture framework actually contains about 33, 34 industry skills that are required, and no, there's no mapping of the RIASEC codes to that. So Andrew, it's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. So what you may want to do is, if you are eyeing for a role in the SkillsFuture industry map, right? What the SkillsFuture map have is the descriptors, the description of each of the roles that they are supposed to do. So this actually allows you to do on your own the mapping process of RIASEC. All right. So doing that allows you to use the framework and map back to the RIASEC to identify this particular job role. What is the RIASEC code for it? Okay. So Andrew is sharing some useful resource as well. This is a SkillsFuture assessment job matching for student though. So Andrew, take note, the link that you shared is for students because the portal has got two versions. One is for adults, one is for students. All right. Okay. So Paula is asking, how can you use the RIASEC tool with other career matching tools? So RIASEC itself, it gives you the understanding of what you are interested to do. And then there are other career matching tools such as perhaps MBTI, personality, right? Or even other values kind of tool. What I usually tell my client is this, don't be overwhelmed by the different tools. What's more important is you must know yourself. You must know about who you are as a person, what you're interested to do, what's important to you, what you can do, and how you behave, how you respond. So these are the 4 dimensions that I always tell my clients. You need to be aware. If you're not sure of these, right, and people ask you, so who are you? What can you do? What do you like to do? How do you perform how do you respond under stress? And you cannot answer this well, it means that you're not self-aware. It means you're not self-aware, and because you're not self-aware, right, it's really very difficult for you to be identifying a job, a suitable career for yourself. No one in this world will know you better than yourself. So, do take time. This is what I realized that many of my clients, when they come to us, because they don't know themselves well enough, even after working 20, 30 years, they struggle. They still struggle with telling me what they're good at doing. Somebody who's worked for 20 years, you surely must have some skills, right? But you'll be very surprised. There are a lot of them, they cannot articulate more than 3 skills. So, get help if you need to. If you are not able to come out with the answers on your own, talk to somebody from Workforce Singapore, E2I, or get help from the private service career provider. It's a really, really interesting time that we are in, COVID-19. And I know a lot of people are kind of like reevaluating their career options. Should they make a switch? Should they do something different? This whole pandemic has made us reevaluate everything, our jobs included. So there's never a better time than to go and talk to somebody about your career. As I mentioned right at the start, we need more conversations around our work, around what we do, around how we feel about our work. All right. So thanks, Paula, for the question. And Andrew, the RIASEC codes mapping to the job titles, we don't really have it. And I think what you shared is the matching part, right? For the job roles. Okay. So with that, I'm mindful of time. We are just slightly overshot 4 p.m. So, if you have any questions, Esther, all right. Esther asked, okay, so I will end this, by just sharing with Esther. And I'm glad she asked this question because it's really so important. Besides the RIASEC, right, codes that you all learned today, I hope this was useful for you. I really think that, the 4 important things that you need to know about yourself. Number 1, you need to know what you are interested to do. Okay, what you're interested to do. That's number 1. Number 2, you need to know what you are good at doing. What you are good at doing, that's your skills. Number 3, you need to know what is important to you. That's your values, what you believe in, what's important to you. It could be things like family, it could be things like money, it could be whatever, the things that you hold as important to you. And the last one, you need to know how you respond. How do you behave, right? Are you somebody who's easily agitated? Are you somebody who is calm when everybody else is agitated, right? That's your personality. So knowing these 4 things is what we call our VIPS. VIPS, values, interests, personality, skills. Values, interests, personality, and skills. Knowing these 4 things about yourself, it will give you a head start to knowing who you are as a person. And then looking at that to kind of map back, using RIASEC is one of the ways for you to find out your VIPS. So there are many other tools that you can use, but the most important thing is tools aside. Knowing this VIPS is more important. You need to understand it, you need to own it, so that you can know how you want to apply, what kind of roles you should apply for, what kind of career decisions you should make for yourself. Okay. So I will fast forward to, sorry, there's actually a feedback slide that I need all of you to do, and SkillsFuture they'll be upset with me if I don't get you to do this. So let me just pull that slide out. So just hang on a little while more, right? Yes, here we go. So do take your phones if you have a phone, or just access this QR code to enter in the post-webinar survey for me, right? If you enjoyed this, just let them know this was useful for you and you want some more of these such events. And remember to type in the workshop code GS 181220-Avodah. Okay, wonderful. Thanks, Kevin, for copy and pasting the link for everyone. Right. So if you have gotten this on your phone and you are already doing the survey, please complete it, and please feel free to drop off the call because I'm mindful we really exceeded by 5 minutes. All right. So thank you so much, everybody. I'm getting so much affirmation from all of you saying thank you and how useful it was. Thank you for direct messages, though I'm not able to respond to all of them. So if you are done with this, you can just drop off the call. Just want to wish all of you a very happy year end. A Merry Christmas for those of you who are celebrating Christmas, and of course 2021, right? Let's look forward to a better year than what we have for this year. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for joining me. It was my pleasure to host this session and run through this with you guys.